everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is AJ, the Movie Owl. Yep, now before I start, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, all that. Any comments, I will be getting back to people. I'll reply to all comments. Yeah, so today I'm going to give you a review and my thoughts on the movie, the BABADOOK. Yeah, I had to think about that. I was going to say the BABADOOK. The BABADOOK. I recently purchased it. As you can see behind me, there's the edition that I got. I have done that's the hardback book that came with it. I have done an opening for this, a couple of videos down in my list, because I received it yesterday, watched it last night. So, a little bit about the film before I begin with my thoughts on it. The film was released on October 24th in 2014. It's got a 15 rating and it runs at 1 hour and 34 minutes. It is an Australian production, I believe. Certainly Australians in it. It was directed by Jennifer Kent, who was also the writer on the film. We'll come on to her a bit later. It had a budget of $2 million. And went on to make 10 million at the worldwide box office. So it was a relative financial hit in that sense. Horror films are generally very cheap to make. This sort of film, you have pretty much one location. Do you know what I mean? They're easy to make films, and they get a good return. The basic synopsis for the film is: single mum and child fall into a deep well of paranoia when an eerie kid's book, Mr. Babadook, manifests in their home. Yeah, so that's pretty much the rundown. So let's get into my review for the film, all that stuff aside, and let's do it. Okay, so let's review this film, my thoughts on it. Now, first off, I'm not a big horror fan. I do like some horror films. I've got like the Friday 13th, Elm Street, Chucky's. I do have a few, but I'm not massively into horror. I do have issues with horror films, but there you go. So anyway, so the plot for this film, and I gave you the synopsis, but I'll give you my take on it. So the film follows this mother and daughter, mother and son. Now, she lost her husband while she was in labour. He had a car crash, taking her to the hospital. This is all off screen. Subsequently crashed. He died. So now we catch up with her 7-8 years later, and she's not doing very well for herself. She's not over the death. Even though she loves her son, there's an element of resentfulness towards him because of the accident that he survived and the husband didn't, which is a pretty normal thing. And also because the son does seem to have some sort of ADHD and is very troubled, causes trouble, screams all the time. One of them sort of kids, the type that if you're in the supermarket, you just want to, grab hold of them, shake them, give them a slap, that sort of thing. But yeah, anyway, so they live in this dowdy looking house like all horror films have, where it's not very light, not very colourful, very grey, very, the palette tone of the colours is very reflective of the nature of the film. Yeah, you got to have that for atmosphere, haven't you? She's very dowdy herself. She doesn't really take care of her looks and all this sort of a thing. So yeah, and then this book appears, the BABADOOK. She starts reading it to her kid, realizes that it's this terrible book. The book's unfinished. The kid starts believing in the stories of this BABADOOK and that he's coming and all this sort of nonsense. And strange things start occurring in the house, noises, shadows, all that sort of malarkey that you get. Yeah, there's, I don't know, I don't know what to say really. I don't want to spoil the film. No, actually, this will spoil the film. If you haven't seen this film, I'm going to go into territory that will spoil the film for you. So that's the basic premise of the film. Now, as I was watching it, I was wondering whether this BABADOOK was actually real, or whether what I was actually watching was this woman's descent into madness, and like a shared madness with her son. You know, a shared breakdown, which can happen with two people in close proximity to one another. If one has issues, the other can develop the same, and which in my mind would have been a much more interesting film. As it turns out, this BABADOOK thing is real. It ends up sort of possessing her. She subsequently like kills the family dog, strangles it to death. You know, the kid, he believes in her, and they, you know, usual sort of fare. They manage to overcome it. And you know, because they find the strength within each other to overcome this thing, to fight it off, ward it off. Yeah, so the film doesn't land the ending for me. I'll be honest. I'm going to talk about the end. At the end of the film, they sort of overcome it, like in It, I suppose, where they sort of overcome their fears. To a degree in this, overcome some fears to a degree, and ward it off like that. Now, it stops being this top hat wearing, cloak wearing, long finger ghoul thing, and sort of collapses, and she takes her hat off, and she starts screaming, she's looking at something. You don't know what she looks at, and the thing ultimately dashes off downstairs and runs down into the cellar of the house. All good. She shuts the door, locks it. Right, now we jump forward in time a bit. The kid's having a birthday. They seem a bit happier, you know, sorted out their problems. The kid's going back to school, this sort of stuff. And the boy's in the garden. He's digging stuff. He's digging up earthworms and millipedes and you know, this sort of thing, right? And she takes the bowl. She goes to the door of the cellar. It's bolted up. It's got loads of bolts on it now. She unlocks it, goes downstairs with the bowl, looking for whatever's down there. It comes running at her. She's scared and does this impossible lean backwards, comes back up, and it takes the bowl to feed. So and that's sort of like where we're left. So, you know, it's one of these films I've got to have a look at what people get of this ending, right? Because for me, the ending is I don't get it. You know, is this some sort of a supernatural ghoul? It can't be, because it wants to feed. It wants to feast, so it must be some sort of a creature of some kind. I don't know. And this is where the film fails for me. Right, had it been the woman's descent into madness, the BABADOOK wasn't real. The book was real, but the thing itself wasn't real, and it was just a story of this woman's descent into her own mind and the madness, and a breakdown and all this, and coming out of that would have been a far more interesting and effective film for me than what we subsequently got. As I've said, horror films rarely stick the landing for me. It's like they get stuck in their own, you know, what should we do? Thingy was the same. Jeepers Creepers. I thought the premise was great. You know, the setup until I saw the creature, and it was just like some Buffy the Vampire reject. But I digress. Anyway, so let's talk a bit about the acting in the film. So the main woman, like I said, I don't know her name. I don't know any of the actors' names in this. Don't really care to know them. She was fine. She done good, going from being nice to being evil when that time came within the film. Now I know she has been in maybe 3 episodes of Game of Thrones, and probably seen her in a couple of other things. Yeah, but you know, the actors are of no. The boy himself, he was okay in some scenes. He was bad in others, as child actors can be. But yeah, you know, so it is what it is. Now, the film is directed pretty well. There is a greatness buried within this film that I could feel with the filmmaker herself. What's her name again? I've got to have a look. Jennifer Kent, who also wrote it. There's a greatness buried within the film that I could feel trying to sort of, you know, this director, this up and coming director has got something, but she's not quite there yet. That's the sense I got with the film. Now, I have seen her film that came after this, The Nightingale, which I do have in special edition Blu-ray. That was a very good film. Very, very good. And the greatness that I speak of shone in that film. So I can't really fault her because, you know, there are elements I didn't like to the directing, but I could see a superb director hidden within what was going on. Someone who hadn't refined their craft, so to speak. Someone who needed to grow as a director. And with The Nightingale, you do see more of, you know, far more of what she can do while directing a film. But yeah, so I'm sure people like this film. Like I said, it was a financial hit. I've heard good things. You wouldn't get a second sight release like this if there wasn't a market for it. If the film didn't have some sort of a following. For me, like I said, there's a good film in there. It just wasn't what I wanted from the film, which is a shame. It is. But yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to rate the film out of 10. I don't do that sort of thing. It's just too simplistic. When giving films a rating is way too simplistic, because, you know, I could give this like a 2.5 or 3 or something like that at 5, say, argument's sake, and then I give something else the same, but I prefer it far better because you're playing around with little numbers, a small amount of numbers, so it doesn't work for me. Would I recommend the film to anyone? Probably not. I bought it. It was a blind buy. Am I a bit disappointed that I bought it? Yeah. I can always send it back, get my money back. I could always sell it on eBay. I'm undecided as to what, because it is a beautiful set. You know, the hardback book is really good, 150-page hardback book. But the film just didn't stick the landing. It's, like I said, you know, it's got elements of greatness in it. But overall, I probably wouldn't ever watch it again. I don't think I'd ever feel the need to. But yeah, so anyway, so that's my review, my thoughts on this film. Tell me your thoughts. Like I said, I'm not big into horror. I'm not knocking people that love horror. I can understand, you know, people who have their own tastes and stuff. I've got my own tastes that people probably don't agree with. So I'm not knocking them for liking the film or anything like that. It's not a bad film. It's just not my sort of film. But yeah, so anyway, so this is AJ signing off. Please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell and all that. And hopefully I'll see you next time around. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.